Welcome to Yelling Into the Void, a podcast discussing and exploring topics in World of Warcraft. I'm Tevin, joined as always by Scott.
Hello.
And this week, Scott, we have had quite a bit of things going on with like raid testing and stuff like that. But we are still in this little bit of a like weird lull spot. So like we have a bunch of new things that are coming and new news, right? But we also don't really have anything that's a huge new thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, more or less, it's going to be kind of the same as what we were talking about last week, giving updates on what we kind of have seen over the past week. And then I think we're going to kind of try and talk a little bit about what we're thinking about for season 3 and our thoughts on it.
Yeah, sounds good to me. We do have one very important thing that happened, though, which was I was right again.
Just always right. You always.
I'm just killing it.
If Scott gives you a date for an expansion announcement or like a release date for something, you got to fully believe him. Make sure you schedule all your time off work around it. And when he's wrong, message him directly and blame him for it.
Yeah, please do that. And I will promptly ignore your messages. No, so the big news to just today, actually, as we sit down to record this, is that patch 11.2 will be out. Wait, is it 11? Is it 11? Are we on 10 or 11?
Yeah,
we're on 11.
11.
11.2. I'm good at dates. I'm not good at patch numbers. Will be out on the 5th of August, just as I predicted a few weeks ago. The season will start on August 12th, and that's also when the raid will be released. All difficulty levels of the raid the season. I think it's interesting because like they are following through with what we talked about last week, which is that essentially the season starts on the 5th as well. The full season doesn't start, but we get to do M0s, we get to do delves. Mm-hmm. So the season will have kind of begun from a certain point of view. So that's April 8th or April 5th is the patch. April 12th is the raid. April 20th is midnight announcement. So it's going to be a very, I keep saying April. Why do I keep saying August?
I was going to correct you, but I was going to let you kind of dig that hole. And then I was like, yeah, guys, make sure you schedule your time off around April.
Shut up. August. They both start with A. It's basically the same month. Yeah. So August is going to be really, really busy, right? Like we're going to be like in the middle of kind of just feeling our way through the season. It'll be like 1 week into the season, and then we'll have all this midnight stuff to talk about. So it's going to be pretty exciting fall, I think. I'm excited.
If I remember correctly, that's almost kind of how they did the War Within, though. Like we started a season, and we got War Within news so early into the last expansion. And I think that was in part due to the fact that it wasn't just the War Within, it was this whole World Soul saga. Mm-hmm. And so they wanted to give us time to like kind of process everything. And then we got more details about the War Within past that. Mm-hmm. More details about the War Within specifically past that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like this might be kind of the new avenue they're going with these expansion announcements, especially if we're not going to have a season 4, which I think is still the assumption, never been truly confirmed, but at least the assumption for the expansion that we will not have a season 4 and we'll just end with season 3 and go straight into midnight after season 3.
Almost certainly. Just based on the timing of the announcement alone, right? It just seems like it has to go that way. So, and also like it begs the question, they like to do these expansion announcements at big events, right? That's why they're kind of timing this for Gamescom. They did the whole World Soul Saga thing at BlizzCon last year or 2 years ago. I don't even know.
2 years ago, I think.
Yeah. And then there is a BlizzCon next year in September of 2026. There is a BlizzCon. And I feel like that would probably be too early for a big, huge Last Titan announcement, just timing wise. Like, let's say Midnight launches in January or February. That's roughly season 2 of Midnight will come out in July, right? July, or depending on January, February, July, August timeframe. So maybe it could, that could be close because it'll be like, it feels like September will be about maybe first information about season 3 time, and maybe they can just lump that together. I don't know. Just trying to think a year in advance, but maybe they just. I don't think Dragonflight announcement happened during any kind of big event. I think they just kind of dropped an online stream and said, "Hey, we're going to stream on this day and announce our next big thing." So they don't have to do it that way, but you would assume that they want to come to BlizzCon with something big to talk about.
Yeah, Diablo 5.
Sure.
Or something.
Maybe.
Good.
Yeah.
Overwatch 3.
No, they're Overwatch 4. They're just going to skip 3.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what World of Warcraft's going to get. Honestly, it could be one of the things where they do like a spin-off of the game again. I mean, we had Warcraft Rumble come out in the last BlizzCon, which
rest in peace.
Ironically, like they killed the game, but when it was first released, I feel like a lot of the WoW creators like actually gave it pretty decent reviews. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some spin-off or something like that
maybe
come out of the next BlizzCon.
Yeah, I didn't care for the Rumble thing. I tried it. I didn't care for it, but
what of their IPs would be most due for a sequel at this point? Warcraft?
I mean,
or StarCraft?
Warcraft is like 20 years due for a sequel.
Yeah, Warcraft or StarCraft, I think would be like the two main ones.
Yeah, I wonder. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe it feels to me like esports has moved on from the real time strategy scene. You know, I think MOBA is like his king of the scene. And they tried that already and it didn't really work. So maybe they can bring it back. Maybe StarCraft 3 can bring back the real-time strategy game. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, definitely think it's MOBAs and shooters still.
Yeah,
like
shooters, yeah.
Counter-Strikes and Valorant. But anyways, WoW talk for this week. Like I said, we've had continued Mythic Plus and raid testing. Scott and I probably aren't going to go a ton into that. We've watched a little bit, but we don't have a ton of information, and we don't have anybody doing like actual breakdown content on this yet. I imagine we will get some breakdowns once everything kind of ends, but the main person who does those is Dratnos, and I believe he's on vacation. So
he is, yeah.
We are likely not going to be getting any breakdown videos here anytime soon. Maybe somebody like Kalamazoo or somebody like that will do a breakdown here once they're all over. But yeah, I kind of want to go into this, I guess, with a little bit of the mystery until we do have somebody who has like actually sat down and like, you know, came up with not necessarily a strat, but a general idea of how everything interworks together. Because if you just sit here and talk about boss mechanics, I mean, it doesn't really mean much. It's kind of how every mechanic interacts with each other that makes the boss fight fun, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, from my perspective, like what I want most out of the information coming out of raid testing right now is the raid fun? And the feedback that I've seen from the people that are spending a lot of time testing it, and keep in mind, we've only had heroic testing as of this recording date. There has been no mythic testing yet. So there's still a pretty large part of the raid that needs to be looked at. But the feedback and the response and the energy coming from people that have tested it is really good. It's really positive. It seems like it's a fun raid. I've heard, you know, phrases like best raid of the expansion being tossed around. People seem very, very positive on the fights, the theme. The only complaint I've seen out of the raid so far is that it has a lot of trash in it. Is what the vibe I'm getting is. It has a lot of trash, and I think Undermine kind of spoiled us, because I think Undermine probably had a lot of trash too, but it was just so easy to skip so much of it that we got a little spoiled, and now we're gonna have to go back into a raid that's gonna have a lot of mandatory trash. But good news, the renowned track, the raid renowned track, has steps on it that allow you to weaken the trash a little bit. Hooray!
I guess if we're not going to get rid of it, that's the second best thing. So,
yeah.
So other than that, though, like Mythic Plus testing is also going on. They've had, you know, more dungeons.
Yeah, it was the 4 War Within dungeons this week. It started late though. The testing week was supposed to start on Tuesday. They delayed it. They didn't push a build till Wednesday, and I think it was like end of day Wednesday before they actually unlocked testing of the dungeons.
They always seem to fumble the bag a little bit with Mythic Plus testing, and I don't really understand why. Like, I get their main focus is on the raid,
Yeah,
because that takes a lot more development effort, but also, if we're gonna have Mythic Plus testing, like, we should have Mythic Plus testing and
sure.
not
Yeah.
just say we're gonna do something and then not do it. So, other notable things of this week, you and I talked about the Breath of Cinder Ghost change for Frost DK last week. That has been reverted,
Sort
and
of.
they gave a developer note on why.
Mhm.
So we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then they've also done another disservice to DKs, in my opinion, with an Unholy DK essentially target capping them, with how it's currently implemented, which is awful, since that's like their main niche. That's like saying a boomkin can only hit 5 targets,
Yeah.
like, what the fuck are we doing here? So,
Yeah, so it's definitely still changed, right? It's not like they just reverted it back to the way it was. It is a cooldown that you press that grants damage and can be extended by certain abilities, but is not like the game is not going to be just extending. You do no damage outside of breath, and you have to extend your breath as long as possible. I'm pretty sure it's just going to be impossible to extend it too long. So they left a little bit of that in. But it's definitely, they got rid of the empowered part for the same. Yeah, I like it. Like, it didn't even occur to me when I first looked up this. I was like, oh, using an empowered ability in melee would suck. But you, of course, the DPS class, immediately picked up on that, and that is one of the problems that people said. Even if you could move with it, which you could, it was clunky and weird. So I don't know. Like, I saw a very positive post on Reddit just yesterday from a Frost DK that was very, very, very positive about this current flavor of Frost DK. Take that with a grain of salt. It's one guy on Reddit, but at least that one guy is happy.
Yeah. So what I will say about this is they've changed the breath playstyle, and so I do know a little bit about Frost, and so I'll talk to this a little bit. I'm not guaranteeing I'll be 100% accurate on this, but Frost has 2 main builds that they normally play. There's breath, there's obliteration. The thing about obliteration is you generate and spend killing machine procs back-to-back globals throughout your entire obliteration window. That's the whole purpose of the cooldown. Now, what they're doing with breath is they're almost making it kind of the same playstyle as obliteration, because instead of the runic power you spend extending breath, it is spending killing machine
Yeah,
procs that is extending your breath. So with obliteration, you have, like, you press the cooldown, you have abilities that will 100% guarantee you killing machine procs. And that's how you do that, like, bounce back and forth between like spend, generate. With breath, you're not going to have the guaranteed generation. So it's going to, I feel like it's just going to feel like a weird kind of obliteration window.
sure.
But the thing is you're just doing damage the whole time. So like, you don't need to bounce back and forth. You can press other buttons and do other things while breath is still happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying this is going to feel bad by any means. I just think that it is kind of making it more in line with what obliteration is like, and less so like, I don't know that this is a bad thing, because it felt kind of weird to have like your standard rotation, then you press breath and you never want to spend any runic power on anything else ever. But now you're not going to be really punished for doing so.
Yeah.
So it's going to make the rotations kind of more similar between the two and allow people who only play one to kind of more comfortably play the other one.
Sure.
Which, like I said, I don't necessarily think is a bad thing, but I do think like homogenizing things could potentially be bad. So I'm interested to see how this shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, not to defend it, but it seems like it's just another one of those, this thing is impossible to balance effectively things. Like, I think one of the things they look for is disparity between the best player at a thing and the worst player at a thing, right? And they need to make the class like functionable for the type of person who's not an expert at the class. But in order to do that with something like the breath system as it used to work, if you are the best at this class, you can just fucking own with it. And that's just ultimately really hard to balance. And I think that's when breath has been its most powerful. It's been really, really powerful. I mean, this is a similar problem to what Augmentation Evoker had, right? This idea that we have to make Augmentation Evoker good for the least common or the most common denominator of player. The result of that is the best, most coordinated player, it becomes absurd. It becomes so good. And that it felt like if you're really, really good at managing breath, in order to make it good for people that aren't really good at managing breath, if you are really good at managing breath, it became like, holy shit, you're doing more damage than anyone. And so they kept having to nerf and rebalance it, and it just kind of made Frost not that great. And so this is a way to solve that problem. I agree with you. Like, I don't want to see, I like the cool thing about this game is not only that you have different specs within the same class that have different play styles, but also within the spec themselves, there are sometimes different play styles. You can make different choices. And that is one cool thing the hero talent system did. But even outside of that, yeah, I mean, the idea that there were for a very long time 2 different builds for the same spec is cool because, you can switch between them if you get bored, or one can be good in a certain moment and another can be good and it's just like, that's fun and interesting. And I agree with you. The homogenization of that is a little concerning, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I don't want to talk too bad about it yet because I don't know how it's going to feel.
Sure.
There's a very real possibility that it feels completely different still because you're not like spending and generating back to back to back to back. It's just they have changed what extends it. And I think I need to go back and read it. I don't remember 100%, but I think there's a cap on how long you can extend it now.
I don't remember if they specifically said that, but it might just be because, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but killing machine procs are essentially RNG, right? So, like, at some point,
anytime you spend a rune,
at some point you're just not going to get them, and I think it's an 8-second cooldown, and every killing machine proc you spend extends it by 1 second. So, like, I think just like they maybe don't even have to build a cap into it because there's just no way you're going to be able to keep it up indefinitely. It's just impossible. I don't know.
To correct myself, it's anytime you spend runic power, not a rune.
Yeah,
but
they would come for you. The Frost DKs are very passionate about their class.
But so Frost DK aside, again, they're doing a lot of things with DK this season, so we need to talk about it. And I think we'll just go down this main segment now at this point because
I thought we were there already.
We need to talk about Unholy if we're talking about Frost. Like, Unholy has been the king of DKs for season 2. Frost was kind of the king in season 1. But DK really came out with this sand lane build, which kind of made their rotation a little bit simpler. You didn't have to set up a nuclear launch sequence or anything like that to actually perform on this spec anymore. And I don't know what the thought process is here because DK, like, if you think about uncapped Mega Blasters and AoE, what comes to mind? You get DK and Boomkin.
Yeah.
Like, those are like the 2 major outliers when it comes to just completely uncapped massive AoE pulling. And DK's is because they have quadratic scaling with bursting wounds or bursting sores or whatever the fuck it's called. I don't remember. As well as they used to have this on Epidemic, but Epidemic has been nerfed so much now that it just isn't as good. So what they've done is they make your sores essentially target capped now.
Yeah.
And they didn't used to be. So I don't know what the goal is here for Unholy because it doesn't seem like they've made any changes to make their single target any better because of this. And you and I, like Scott and I, have been proponents of just like target caps suck. So this entire change just in general seems bad to me. And WoW had put out an article. If you're interested, I would go read that article because it's going to go into way more technical details about DK than I'm familiar with. I can talk surface level about it. I've played Unholy. But yeah, I would definitely check that out if you're interested.
Can I tell you my least favorite part about it? Because it has nothing to do with the numbers or target capping or anything. It's the whole flavor of the class and the spec is the spreading of plague and disease, right? And now you're telling me that these festering wounds that you're spreading through your diseases to enemies spreads to 8 of them and then just goes, I'm good. That's not how plagues work. That's the opposite of how plagues work. It's like from a flavor perspective, it doesn't make any sense. And like this is true for all hard target capping, by the way. But it just seems like for this specifically is like that just kind of kills the idea of the class. It's just like, yeah, it's a bummer. I like, again, this is probably an ease of balance thing. And like, that's, it feels like, and we've talked about this before, this game is so fucking hard to balance. And the fact that they get as close as they get is like remarkable. But yeah, they make decisions like this and it's like, they're kind of throwing their hands up. Like, we can't figure out a way to balance this thing that like unholy DKs are so represented in like MDI and stuff like that, because if you pull big, they just do ungodly amounts of damage. And it's like they don't want that to happen, but ultimately, like, who cares, because the majority of players are not going to be pulling that big, right? And it just seems like it hurts them in the medium to large-ish size pulls that most players actually experience.
I mean, the way to solve this is the way that they do it with Boomkin. It isn't to neuter them and make it to where they're target capped. It's to take away the fact that they're nigh unkillable right now.
Yeah, true.
Like, the reason that they are so overrepresented in Mythic Plus is because they deal insane AoE damage. They don't deal terrible single target. And the healer, like, if you have a Unholy DK and a reasonably competent tank, your healer has to heal 3 people. Like, you can ignore the Death Knight. Like, that's how you solve it, is you make them have to be worried about, just like a Boomkin. And that's the reason I think that Boomkin isn't getting hit with the same treatment. Is because if you take that away,
scared right now.
Yeah.
They're terrified.
If you take that away, then what does a Moonkin have? Like, their whole identity is massive AoE.
Yeah.
And that used to be the same for Unholy, but with the Sand Lane tree, they just got extremely tanky too. And then the changes that they made to AMS at the beginning of the expansion and everything like that, like, all of that compounded to make Unholy DK just a monster in Mythic Plus. And I don't think that this is necessarily the correct way to solve it. I'm welcome to being wrong. I'm not a game designer, but I don't think that this is the right way to solve it. Even if it solves the issue, it's going to feel bad.
Yeah.
So I feel like we should find a different way to do it.
It's not all bad for our Death Knight friends, though, because Grip's cooldown has been reduced for Frost and Unholy DKs to match the cooldown reduction that Blood has. Hooray! Death Knights are saved. The problem is solved.
Yeah, except no. Grip's still not a raid buff, Blizzard. I'm sorry, it's not.
Yeah, well, I mean, and like, so here's the honest truth, and I've heard this from every competitive raider in this game. If you have a piece of utility and you can push that utility onto your tanks or your healers, you're going to do that 100% of the time, because for overall damage output, it just makes sense to push that utility responsibility on a tank or a healer. And so, like, even if basic grip for Blood is now not better than Unholy's grip or Frost's grip, because it has the same cooldown, it's still more likely that if you can push that onto a Blood DK, you're going to do it over the other two specs. And they still have Gorfine's Grasp, which is still a mass grip. Obviously not nearly as good as Grippy Hands, but still a mass grip. It doesn't solve the problem. If you're going to just give them a buff, man, just like if we're going to go down this everyone has a buff thing, then give everyone a buff. Just
give them Horn of Winter back.
Just do it. Yeah, sure. That's great. Great idea. Yeah. Easy.
So we do have to talk about, there's one class I didn't add to this list that I'm thinking about now, and I'm nervous, Scott, going into season 3.
Oh.
I have seen a lot of talk about Augmentation Evoker dealing the same damage as other DPS classes while also still buffing people. And if that is the case, we are going to see another season in which Aug is just brought to everything. And I know we've had a season without them, but I honestly feel like there is no like, if we're allowing Aug to do the damage of other specs, we have to take away their ability to buff other people. Like, you can't deal the same amount of, that's almost like saying like the Wind Fury argument for shamans for the longest time. Like a shaman could come in and do a ton of damage, but then you could have a melee group and they provide Wind Fury, and so they're just buffing other people. And Wind Fury's been neutered. It's been turned into Sky Fury. Every shaman gets it. And so it's just not as big of a deal now.
Yeah.
But this is going to be the same problem. And in fact, it's going to be a worse problem because they make your group tankier on top of all of that too.
I think it ultimately depends on if Blizzard is okay with AUG being meta again, because they basically in season 2 said, that class has been on the top for too long. We're going to nerf it into the ground. And then they've slowly given them back power. I don't want this to be a bad unplayed class. Like, I don't want that. I want it to be as balanced and feasible as any other class in the game. But yeah, the just like we talked about earlier, the problem with augmentation has always been from the very first moment is if it is competitive in damage, either damage it's doing itself or damage it's providing to others, it's going to be in the meta because of everything else it provides, and they have not solved that. I like, once again, we have to talk about does it make sense for this type of role to exist in this game? And either they're going to be announcing some new specs in Midnight that also add some new classes like this type, or they need to rebuild the class from the spec from the ground up. I really do think that's the case because they have not gotten it right yet. I know they're trying, and I respect them for trying and tinkering and figuring out. But this is, everyone called this the second they announced the class. It's just like, it's either dog shit or incredible, and there's going to be no in between, because if it's remotely competitive on damage, it's mandatory. And if it's shitty on damage, it's going to be excluded 100% of the time. So yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. How do you solve a problem like augmentation? I don't know.
The only way to solve this while keeping it in the game is to add competition for it, which means now we have 5-man groups going to 2 DPS, a support, a healer, and a tank.
I just don't think that's I agree, but I think that's a bad direction for the game. I do.
That's just the only way that I think AUG sticks around in its current iteration.
Yeah.
Like, other than that, it needs to be completely reworked, like you said, or removed.
So what is the craziest theory on this that we could come up with? Like, is it AUG becomes tank? By the way, I said theory, and my phone heard Siri and wants to know what I want, which is creepy.
If we're talking about how AUG sticks around, at like not necessarily in its current iteration, but at least in the game, AUG tank I think would be interesting. I could see just an augmentation DPS being fine. I could also see it becoming another shield healer, because we really only have like one shield healer, and AUG would be an interesting way to do that.
Interesting,
giving a playstyle of like reactive healing to preservation, with things like rewind and stuff like that, but then giving AUG the ability to do like proactive healing, kind of like Dispriest.
It's funny because you said, like, I was about to say to you, they can't just make it a normal DPS spec. It's called augmentation. If it's not augmenting anything, what is it doing? And then I remembered there's enhancement shaman that exists.
Yeah, they're augmenting themselves. Come on.
Sure. I guess you could like squint at it and be like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So I think those are the 3 avenues that they have if they want to kind of rework how AUG is. I think the realistic area that we're going into at this point is Blizzard has shown they don't want to get rid of it and they don't really want to change it. So the new the new Void Demon Hunter that we're assuming is going to be happening could be a support spec. They could announce
so weird. Just be Voidy and Demon Hunter-y, and what does it do? Oh, it protects you.
It could be they finally announce a Tinker class or something like that in Midnight, and then that just has like multiple support specializations, and it is just like a support class. I don't know how the only way to keep AUG at its current iteration, like I've said, is to add competition for it and therefore reserve a group slot for a support class, I think.
Okay, here's what I'm going to say. I put on my hat right here. This is my tinfoil hat. I think what Blizzard lets or doesn't let augmentation be in this season is a pretty good indicator of what their plans are for it going forward into next expansion and beyond. Because, like, in my mind, tell me if you agree with this or not. In my mind, if they've decided already, which at this point, if they're going to like delete the spec or just completely rework the spec to where it's not even a support class anymore, if that's on the table, they're already working on it, and it's probably pretty far along in that. So in my mind, if I'm planning on doing that, if that's the long-term plan, then in season 3, I'm just like, fuck them. We're changing it anyway. We don't need to tinker with this. We'll just make it be okay. And we don't have to worry about being meta and pissing everyone off. We don't want to make it unplayable, but we just want to keep like bare minimum amount of playableness. So, I mean, we'll see, right? Like if AUG becomes meta in season 3 and they allow that to happen for the season, it might indicate that they are not planning on redoing it. I don't know. I'm just talking out of my ass at this point, but who knows?
I don't know. I think you're probably right. Like, I feel like if they have a plan to change something, they're not going to drastically change it now because they know they will be drastically changing it in the future.
It's a waste of time. It's a waste of work. Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think that the converse can draw the converse conclusion. Like, I think that if it ends up becoming meta and we allow it to become meta, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not changing it, because it could also just mean that they just don't want to touch it still and it just happened to be meta, and so now we're going to change it going into midnight, you know?
Yeah, I mean, fair. I would be ultimately shocked if it became meta and did not receive pretty substantial nerfs to push it out of that slot this season. Sure. But stranger things have happened. I don't know. They've let Demon Hunter be meta for like 12 years. So
yeah, I mean, Demon Hunter is right up there with augmentation and prop paladin for like being top tier in Mythic Plus for ungodly amounts of time.
It's utility, man. Utility is king.
Yeah, I mean, double sigils has just made Demon Hunters explode to the top, and even though now they don't have them, they're still insane when it comes to utility over other tanks. So I don't know if there's any other class changes that I really specifically want to call out. AUG was kind of an off the cuff one, and it's only because I was reading something and decided to do my own research after seeing that people were like saying AUG is actually doing like normal DPS amounts of damage on their own, which got me a little concerned. So
yeah, the only thing I had to add was just that both Resto Druid and Preservation Evoker took nerfs in the latest build, and this is like nothing to be concerned about because both classes were absurd. Preservation Evoker is kind of back to the same deal it had at the beginning of the first season of this expansion. You remember, like, Preservation Evoker was not only the best healer in Raid, it was far and away the best healer in Raid. It was so good, and they nerfed it to oblivion. They like fucking killed it, and like no one has played it since. Literally no one ever. They're back to being pretty good in Raid, and so the latest pass hit it pretty hard. It still seems like they're going to be very good in Raid. Resto Druid as well, I think, might have just the highest HPS output this season, which is good for me. But both took a little bit of a nerf. But this is what, like we talked about last week, like don't freak out to nerfs and tier set balancing and nerfs and class balancing. It's just trying to get things in order. Still no Disc Priest nerfs though. I think my understanding is in Raid they're not performing as well because ironically they've become a lot more mana dependent because they increased the mana cost of like all their spells, and so now actually Disc Priest might be back to being a little starved for mana, at least in a Raid situation. I think they're still going to be really, really good in Mythic Plus, though. So I still expect to see some sad changes to shielding at some point. But maybe not. Maybe they're going to save that for next expansion, too. Maybe they're going to let that lay the way it is right now. But that's all I had for changes. Everything else is pretty much the same.
We've got to talk about utility when it comes to Disc Priest too. I mean, bringing a priest gives you PI and Mind Soothe and Mass Dispel.
That's why we can't give them Kick, because that stuff's just too good.
So I mean, the utility that they bring, it's the same thing with shamans. Like shamans bring a lot of utility too.
Yeah.
So
can I just say, playing a Disc Priest or playing a priest in general in keys, like, rots your brain, because I'm not even paying attention to kicks and stops when I'm on my Disc Priest. It's like, yeah, whatever, they'll get that. And then I switch over to my shaman and I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to do things. Hold on, I thought I was just supposed to heal.
Best kick in the game.
Yeah. So it's just like, playing priest rots your brain. It's bad. It's bad for you.
All right, Scott. I think that's enough about class changes. I do want to talk about something else. We're going to talk about this in the way that you and I first read this first, and then we're going to talk about the actual implementation of it and what is actually happening. Because I think that is important for story building on why you and I had the reaction we had when we first read this change.
Yeah.
So for those who aren't keeping up with all of the data mining and things that Wowhead's putting out, they put out an article that quite simply showed dungeon changes that were happening. And one of the changes for Floodgate just stated Bubble's location has been changed. And so Scott and I read that and we were just like, oh, they're tired of people skipping Bubbles. So what they're going to do is they're going to put him in a spot in which you cannot skip him. Mm-hmm. So either right at the bottom of the drop down, so you can't walk around him or anything like that, or make you fight him at some other point in the dungeon. That is not what happened. No. And in fact, what they did is not only hilarious, but also awesome.
It is good to see that the makers of this game still not only are in touch with their community, but also have a sense of humor. Because, so tell the people what they did with our pal Bubbles.
So Bubbles has been moved to where Swamp Face spawns. The third boss, the boss you fight right before you jump down, and he comes out before Swamp Face, and you don't fight him. Swamp Face then spawns on top of Bubbles and murders Bubbles and throws him off to the side. And later in the dungeon, you can see Bubbles' child just kind of sit there distraught. So sad.
I can't believe they did that to poor Bubbles Jr. I mean, Bubbles Jr. is going to have a revenge arc. He's going to be
100%
a Mythic Plus boss in a future dungeon. For sure.
Or a raid boss.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
But yeah, so the reason I think that this is a good change has nothing to do with the fact that I hate Bubbles. The mobs sucked to fight. It wasn't fun, really. And it was just more of an annoyance, and so many people skipped it anyways.
It gave terrible count. That's the thing. It gave 20 count for a mini boss that required a shit ton of time, a shit ton of healing, and you come off of the most healing intensive boss of the season, or the second most healing intensive boss of the season, and then you immediately have another heal check mini boss, and it's you literally have to heal Swamp Face, managing your cooldowns, knowing that Bubbles is coming up next. It's I could burn this cooldown now, but then I won't have it for Bubbles, so the end of Swamp Face gets a little more dicey, and it sucked. I did not like it.
But I think that this is a good change just because they understand how many people disliked fighting this mob. And so they gave us a nod. Yeah. And I think that is just good. Like you said, the fact that the developers are still, even though they have gotten so much larger and people say they don't have any they're not in touch with their community or anything like that. This is a nod to them being in touch with the community. Yeah. And it's being pretty well received, because you can ask any healer. No healer liked Bubbles. Not a single one that I have ever talked to has enjoyed fighting this mob. Nope. So I'm just happy to see it. And I think that they did this in a pretty good way. And I think that the way that Wowhead kind of disguised this in their data mining is pretty awesome as well.
Yeah. I mean, and so just so we know, the thing that happens in the dungeon when you drop down the tube, there is a pack there, and then Bubbles appears and kills the pack. And so from a count perspective, that pack is now alive. So we have to fight that pack. I think it probably gives the exact same amount of count and will be infinitely faster. I don't know what you're going to do pull wise, if you're going to combine that into the next pull after that, because that's a pretty intense pull on its own. There's a lot of casters in there. I don't know. Maybe you can get away with it, but it's who cares? It's a glorious day until Bubbles Jr. comes back and murders us all.
So I did just want to call that out, because if you have been reading and you haven't actually kept up on like what the actual change is, you could have been baited like Scott and I. But that is the change, and it's honestly just a welcome sight. And it's gonna change routing a little bit in Floodgate, which is nice, seeing as we're gonna have it back to back seasons.
Yep.
So any routing changes, kind of like they're doing with Priory, forcing people now to go to the right side, and then changing the first boss and second boss. Like minor changes to their mechanics, is good. Getting a refresher to those dungeons that we're going to be doing for an extended period of time is always going to be a good thing, because they have this kind of like seasonal rotation thing now, and doing dungeons back to back seasons feels odd without any changes.
Yeah.
So
it is hilarious that like I watch testers doing the PTR on stream this week, and like I couldn't just look at what key they're doing to determine if they're on PTR or retail, because it's like, oh, they're in prior and they're on retail. Wait a minute, no, they're not. But yeah, I mean, I just overall, before we move on, like the raid testing, the vibe that people have been coming out of these last 2 weeks of Mythic Plus testing has also been very, very positive. That the changes to the season 1 dungeons, even the changes to the season 2 dungeons, Bubbles included, are all good changes. They're all good changes. They've kept with their philosophy that they've adapted in season 2. A lot of the most punishing areas of those 2 season 1 dungeons have been changed and modified to be more in line, to be more what we expect now through season 2. And man, is that encouraging. Man, is that great to see that they've seen the feedback, they've noticed what people are thinking, and they are sticking with this new Mythic Plus design philosophy. And that's freaking exciting. We'll see what happens with the legacy dungeons this next week, because this week is Tazvesh and Halls of Atonement. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, I'm very encouraged from what I've been hearing.
I will say the legacy dungeons are where we need to keep the most scrutiny, because in the past the legacy dungeons are where Blizzard has fumbled the bag the most.
Yeah.
Things like Throne of Tides, and shit like that, where they actually kind of actively made the dungeon worse.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see how they handle these. I think we have the added benefit that these aren't old dungeons, and have been in Mythic Plus before. But they have taken some previously easy Mythic Plus dungeons and made them awful. I mean, think Necrotic Wake in season 1.
Yeah.
So keeping an eye out on this week's raid testing or Mythic Plus testing, I think, is going to be key. But I would say go into it being optimistic, because all of the other changes that they've done so far and all the changes that they did in season 2 were like spot on and good. So
the one big thing I want to keep an eye on in Halls of Atonement is debuffs. I don't know if you remember this, there were a lot of very painful curses in Halls of Atonement. And they have, in season 2 at least, moved away from having these kind of very, very painful and mandatory to have some sort of dispel abilities. Like there's in season 2, there's a few curses in season 2, but none of them are like really like, if you have they are what it should be, where if you have someone that has a curse, it makes that part of the dungeon a little bit easier for that person, but it is not so overwhelmingly better that you feel like you have to have the thing in your party. And so I'm interested to see if in Halls of Atonement they made adjustments to those curse debuffs to lessen their impact, or maybe even just get rid of some of them. That's something I'm going to be paying attention to. I mean, even though this doesn't affect me, I'm going to be playing Druid, so I will have that curse debuff. It's just like for the health of the game, I think the move away from the mandatory debuff requirements is good.
Yeah, my biggest thing that I want to look at in Halls of Atonement is actually on the final boss. So we had a bunch of visual indicators added to, what's the dungeon? The Necrotic, or the Maldraxxus dungeon, Theater of Pain.
Theater of Pain,
this season. I want to see something added to the final boss for when he throws around the gravestones. Because that's really hard to tell where he's throwing them and what he's doing sometimes.
I have to assume that's going to happen. Like, I would be shocked.
I hope so. I really hope so. It might be harder to implement because it's a different mechanic. He isn't actually like shooting something at you. He's moving one thing to another place that can collide with things.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to see them add some sort of visual indicator on the ground for that.
Yeah, yeah. I think it doesn't have to be quite as easy to digest and see as the lines from the knockback people in Theater Pain, but I think some level of visual clarity improvement there would be good. Yeah. We'll definitely be paying attention to that for next week. Yeah.
And then the other thing for Mythic Plus testing is kind of just getting an idea. I don't know if you've watched a ton, Scott, but timer wise, how are we feeling? Like, are we going back to the timers are essentially free and it's just can you survive dungeons era of Mythic Plus?
It feels very in line with season 2 from what I've watched. And again, like I'll preface this, I have not stepped a toe into any of these dungeons on the PTR. I don't do testing typically, almost entirely because I don't want to set up a fucking UI. But so yeah, I think the what I've heard from people doing it is that it feels very in line with the timing requirements in season 2, which I think can be described as definitely not the timer is free as long as you can live the big hits. That's definitely not what season 2 is, but I don't think season 2 is also like the timer is so tight that healer, like I think we said it a week ago or so, that healer DPS has never mattered less in this season. And that's just because the timer does not require the healer to be maximizing their DPS until you get very, 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 very high up. So it seems like that's going to be the case as well. By the way, it just always cracks me up when I see like these are the best players in the world, are like the best of the best, but when I see them doing like 15s on PTR in not perfect gear, I'm just like, man, you've beaten the game already, and the season hasn't even started.
Is there any other Mythic Plus things that we need to be looking out for going into this next week, though?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just, like we said, paying attention to the changes to those 3 dungeons and see if they're in line with kind of the updated expectation of how the Mythic Plus system works. So just the final 3, we'll see how they go. And I am very optimistic at this point based on what we've seen. So it seems like they recognize this very fragile but great thing they've built in season 2, and they're going to do whatever they need to maintain that. I will say, like, the important thing, as much as all this testing and design upfront is important, and it is, the other reason why season 2 was so successful is because they were very quick and efficient with their adjustments to things if they were overtuned. It just felt like, even when I wasn't playing the game, I was still like loosely following the game enough to see that, like, it felt like every day, every week, it's like, oh, we're pulling this back, we're nerfing this, we're scaling this back, we're changing this. And I think that is the key to success in season 3 as well. Yes, everything up front that they're doing, great, love it, but they need to not be timid on the nerf bat or on the adjustment if it's clear that something is overtuned.
Yeah, I mean, nerfing it to being quote unquote too easy and then letting scaling solve that problem for you, I think, is the way that they need to be looking at these things.
For sure.
All right. Well, one other thing that I wanted to talk about today before we talk about kind of our goals going into the next season is I want to talk about the repeated events that have been happening season over season at this point.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk with the ones that have happened multiple times, and then we'll talk about Turbo Boost last, because I do think there's very good evidence, and you and I have come to the conclusion that they probably will never skip Turbo Boost, given like the numbers and resurgence that has happened because of it. But I want to talk about that one last because we don't have conclusive evidence that that is going to be happening. So the first thing that I want to talk about, and these are both kind of more, I don't really know what to call them. I'm guessing I'll call them more like casual focused events that happen every single season. We have Turbulent Timeways, which is just week over week over week over week. of time walking, but during that time, the weekly that you get gives you a heroic raid piece rather than a normal raid piece from time walking.
Mm-hmm.
And I the reason I want to talk about these is because I don't think that they're necessarily trying to like solve an issue, but I do think that they are throwing a bone to the people who are still playing the game.
Yeah.
I don't know how do you feel about Turbulent Timeways?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. I guess outside the fact that I feel like I don't like running time walking dungeons, and if I want to get the shiny new mount, I feel like I have to run at least 4 time walking dungeons a week, which I don't, which is just like mindless, boring. Like if I had more time to play the game, I wouldn't mind it because I could just like turn on a podcast or watch something while doing it and just be mindless, boring stuff. But I have such limited time to play the game that spending an hour running 5 dungeons that have 0 challenge and are not very interesting, kind of lame at times. But I recognize I'm in the minority there. Probably, I don't have any problem with any of these. The only problem I have broadly with this structure of repeated events is, could the game eventually start to get stale? And this is a problem that, we've been seeing in Final Fantasy 14, that they stumbled upon or expertly designed themselves to a winning structure and cadence of development in that game. And then they just stuck with that with very few changes in over the past 10 years. And people are just kind of getting tired of it. And I think it leads to stagnation. It is a kind of the death of creativity. I think the level of like this is what we're going to do here at this, like in this game, is much looser. But I don't want to see it go down that path. So that's the only complaint I could possibly have about these things, is the potential for future stagnation in design and creativity and ideas if you just get everything. So like, all right, it's this many weeks to this part, so we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. I would want them to still be coming up with new ideas to reward and retain players consistently. Like if it's just this every time now, that would be disappointing.
Yeah, so I guess the main question that I have, and I doubt either one of us has an answer to this, but like, so like this and then the XP event are the two that they continuously have ran season over season at this point. And while the XP one, I think, has a more definitive answer on why they do it, I don't really understand the point behind Turbulent Timeways outside of just being a vessel for a new cosmetic reward. Because the only other argument I could see is for alts, but it's so late in the season that it always butts up to the end of the season, right? Like Turbulent Timeways starts, we know it's going to be 5 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever, and we know at the end of that we're going to have the next season or the next patch. So it just feels too late to really be an alt thing. I really feel like this is kind of just like a vessel for giving us another cosmetic, maybe.
I mean, yes and no. I don't know. Like I just started working on my shaman, my 5th alt of the season. And as much as I hate like running time walking dungeons, getting a heroic piece at the end of 5 every week is going to help accelerate my gearing process. So like, I guess think of it not as just like an alt you're really interested in playing for the season, but perhaps you read the patch notes on PTR and you said, oh, sweet. This class, the changes to this class makes look really good, and I want to play that next season, but I haven't played it all expansion. I want to get it a little geared up, and here's just a little helpful way to accelerate that process a little bit for you. That's what I.
And it goes hand in hand with the XP event too, because time walkings can be used to level extremely fast, and then we have increased XP from this XP event that runs pretty much the same time as time walking typically, or Turbulent Timeways also. So maybe I think you hit the nail on the head. Actually, I didn't even think about like these aren't events for you to think about for the current season. It's allowing people to level up something that they see might be cool to play in the next season, or gear something that they have at max level to then play in the next season. So yeah, I definitely think that that's now that you've said it out loud, the purpose of these events.
Yeah. And I think it's effective in that for a lot of different people, for sure. So, I mean, I think that ultimately, like, the reason why these events are repeated events is because they're successful, right? Like, if no one was doing, if their data was showing them that no one was really benefiting from the XP event, no one was really benefiting from turbulent time waves. The other thing they do with the XP event is they double reputation rewards as well.
Yeah.
Which, people do like to farm reputation. People like to max their renown. I am one of those people, by the way, that I like I don't like go out of my way to do it, but I would like all my renown tracks by the end of the expansion to be filled, just because I like seeing bars go up. And stuff like that is really great because I don't know. I've just like with the fact that in warbands, you like the reputation is shared. I feel like it's never been easier to get your reputation up because I have not tried hard to max any of the reputations in this expansion, and yet I feel like I have like 3 or 4 of them maxed already.
Sure.
And I'm pretty close on the other ones, and it's just like, you do the weeklies and you get some bonus reputation in there, and then if you're doing delves will just throw reputation at you in some of the boxes. And it'll be, I haven't determined if it's random, the rep you get for delves, or if it's based on the delve you're currently in. I haven't actually done the math to figure that out. Like, if you're in the Undermine delve, is it going to give you Undermine rep or whatever? So those things are cool too if you're a reputation gain person. Yeah, I mean, again, I think the only fear here is that, we've caught on a successful formula. We have to continue doing this forever. Like, I think Remix is another great example of this, right? They did the Mr. Pandaria remix. It was very popular. And so they said, okay, we're doing it again with Legion. It's like, great, love it, excited. I get to experience Legion in a fast forwarded, accelerated way that I didn't get to experience because I wasn't playing the game at the same time. But fast forward 10 years from now, and like every 2 years we do blah, blah, blah remix. Is it going to be exciting at that point still? Or is it going to start getting a little stale?
Yeah, I definitely see what you mean. And I think that this is a pretty good segue into kind of talking about Turbo Boost.
Sure.
So numbers have came out, and like you had just said, they aren't going to repeat something if it isn't successful. And Turbo Boost has been a resounding success, I think. When you look at, if you pull up the graph for Mythic Plus keys completed throughout a season, it's pretty typical that it goes and then it goes down for quite a while, and then it eventually hits, like, it peters out at its bottom, and then like the new season gets announced, and then there's a little bump, and then it goes back down again. And that's typical for every season.
Yep.
Well, the new season didn't even get announced this time, and there is a bump like 6 times the size of any other bump in every season, and it was when Turbo Boost happened. And again, this data is just Mythic Plus. I haven't looked anything about like logged raids or anything like that. But Mythic Plus alone is giving us an idea that a significant number of people have came back to the game just due to Turbo Boost. And so I think that reason alone, they're going to keep doing this. I don't think that they have an argument that has any water to not continue to do Turbo Boost.
Yeah, I would be absolutely shocked if they looked at this data and said, like, that was a good one-time thing. Not going to do that anymore. I think it's going to be interesting if they make adjustments to how it works, right? I mean, I think we can basically say, yeah, with 100% certainty, this will come back in some form or fashion. The question is, does it come back the exact same way? Is it going to be another, because it was another 2, right? It was another 2 upgrade paths on everything heroic and Mythic. Is it going to be that? Is it going to be 1 upgrade path? Is it going to be on Mythic only or on heroic? Like, I think there's maybe room for tinkering. I think the big question of it is Dinar. Will that return? Because one thing they have not said anything about doing Turbo Boost again, but one thing they have definitely not said anything about is if the puzzling cartel chip system is going to make its return in the game at all. And I think they learned their lesson from season 2. They will not announce that if it is coming back, if they're going to attach that to the turbo boost system, they're not going to announce that until they're announcing the turbo boost. They're not going to say shit about it because they learned their lesson. But that's the thing I'm most curious about, because I'm just convinced that for the last two expansions, essentially the midpoint patch, the 0.5 patch, has been a shot in the arm of the season to attempt to encourage people to come back or encourage people to keep playing. And I think that is an effective shot in the arm for people that maybe aren't as hardcore, like in raiding and Mythic Plus pushing, but are just more casual players that just want to experience the content and do stuff and have things to do. I don't think it's been as effective for the people that are doing that hardcore rating and key pushing. But Turbo Boost is that exactly, because anyone that wants to push keys and anyone that wants to get CE that perhaps hasn't yet is going to do Turbo Boost, because it gets them 6 more item level. That is going to make that, combined with the buff you're getting from the Renown track, is going to make killing the final bosses in this raid maybe easier than they've ever been. I can't say that with any definitive knowledge because I haven't done them. But it just seems like everyone has an 18% damage modifier and has an additional 6 item level across the board and has a chance to get your BIS trinkets through the dinar system. It just is like, it has to be the easiest CE has ever been to get. And that's not to take away anyone getting CE. I think like that's the great thing about the system is like, when you space it out like that, like, does anyone really care that a guild that has never gotten CE before is getting it this expansion or this season because they've gotten a little bit of extra item level and because they've gotten some additional damage? I just don't think anyone actually, any serious person that should be listened to, cares about that.
Yeah, I agree, but I only agree for a specific reason. It's because it isn't trivializing it. It's still extremely difficult to do. Like, if they just like handed out CE to everybody, then yeah, I think that would be a problem. But it's still extremely hard to do. It's still hard to get 20 people together, and it's still hard to kill the final bosses in these raids.
Yeah.
Albeit Gallywix has been an anomaly as far as difficulty goes, in which like actually easier than his penultimate boss.
Yeah.
But that being said, you still have to kill them both to get CE. So I guess technically to get Hall of Fame, I guess you don't really need them both for CE.
But I mean, who cares? Like, yeah, I totally. And that's the thing is, just in general, their strategy has been for a while that we release a version of the raid that only the world first raiders can do. They beat it, and then we start nerfing the raid. And we continue to nerf the raid until we see a certain amount of players cross a threshold. And that is when we know we have sufficiently nerfed the raid. And for the last few seasons, they have tried to bring back the idea that instead of nerfing the bosses, they are just going to steadily raise player power. And I just think that's a better way of doing it. Now, I'm not saying like the bosses shouldn't still be nerfed a little bit. I think this season's a perfect example. Like, a lot of those mythic bosses were heavily nerfed from the state they were at the beginning of the season to now. But ultimately, doing it this way is better. Giving people player power over time is better, because we talked about this before. There's this weird thing where like the bosses that people that are playing the first week and people playing the last week, they are essentially fighting different bosses. They're in a lot of cases, the nerfs that they have to do to these things are so extensive that it's basically an entirely different fight. And that's not what you want to do. That's not good. Like, you want people to experience, like, the reason people watch the Race to World first is because it's very fun to watch it, first of all, yes, but also because like, oh man, I can't wait till we get to that boss. I can't wait to experience what it's like to fight that myself and to experience that challenge. And yeah, it's never going to be the same level of challenge because these are the best players in the world and they're doing things that none of us have the time, energy, or resourcefulness to do. But it should be as close as possible. And so if we keep doing this, if we keep having turbo boost, and if we keep having these renown tracks, which I think we will, this is a way of pushing the nerfs off of artificially logging into a server one day and seeing patch notes that say Muggsy has 10% less health and does you don't have to soak these things anymore, and more just as player power increases, they will be able to overcome those things that they couldn't overcome before. That's the way to do it. So all for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that generally speaking, just logically giving somebody a buff feels better than nerfing something.
Yeah.
Like, it's essentially solving the same problem. It's doing the same thing, because if you kill something faster, you ignore some mechanics. If you remove the mechanic, you ignore the mechanic. So it's essentially solving the problem the same way, but one just like logically feels better than the other.
Yep.
So
feels good. You see your numbers go up. Numbers go up good. Be like,
there's one other event that I want to talk about. I'm not sure if it's going to be repeated, and in fact, I kind of hope it's not. But they have done this like old legendary event where the drop rates are like extremely buffed and everything like that right now. And I don't know how I feel about it, Scott. Like, on one hand, I think it's cool because I could go back and I could get like Invincible or something like that I haven't gotten. But also, it kind of takes out the prestige and the want to even do that, because what's the point if everybody has it?
Okay, yeah, like not everyone's gonna have it though. Like an amount like Invincible, it's going up from like a 0.5% chance to drop to maybe 5% chance to drop. So like, unless you no life this and have an army of alts and do it every week during the event, the odds that you're gonna get Invincible are still fairly low. I don't know. I think this is a neat thing. I don't care that, like,
So
if we see,
is it a neat thing because it's only happening once, or is it a neat, like, if they continue to do this, does it become a bigger issue?
that is a fair question, because one of the complaints I've seen a lot of stupid complaints about this thing. One of the complaints I've seen that does have some validity is that there are people that play this game just for the mount collection, right? They like to go back to old raids. They like the mounts. They want to collect transmogs and mounts, and they enjoy that. And that is a fun part of the game for them. And they're probably enjoying this week a little bit because they've been trying for some of these mounts for a very long time, and they're going to keep trying for them. They're going to keep doing the same thing they were doing before, but now they get a little bit of a little help from the house. But if it becomes an annual thing, if it becomes a thing we do every summer, right, then you could make the argument, why do I go to these raids every week? Why do I keep doing this week after week, day after day? Like, what's the point? Why don't I just wait for the next collector's bounty event and then I'll do it then? This is a similar point that we made about Turbo Boost, by the way, where we said, like, if you establish Turbo Boost as a thing that happens every season, then what incentive do I, average player, have to push really hard in the first half of the season? I'm just going to wait for Turbo Boost, then I'm going to push then. That is a true complaint for that, and I think this is a true complaint for this, that if you make this collector's bounty thing recurring on a schedule, people know when it's going to be roughly, they're just going to stop farming transmogs and mounts outside of that time period. And that does feel like a loss, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I do have a feeling that they're looking at the numbers right now and they're going to do it again because there's a lot of people farming mounts right now.
Yeah. And I guess my biggest thing is I don't want it to become to the point of, like, it happens so frequently to, like, there has been games in the past, and the best one that I can think of, and this is a really bad parallel because I don't think the majority of the people listening really play, but RuneScape 3, the like newest version of that, they got to this point of like double XP events were happening like every 4 or 5 months, and it just like happened, and then it happened again, and then it happened again, and it happened again, and it happened again. And not only was exactly what you were saying happening, where people were like, okay, I'm just not going to level my skills until the double XP event, but also some skills in that game take like hundreds of hours to get to max level, and you get something for doing that and you feel good about it. And then to know that that just got invalidated by having this repeated event, like that's my biggest concern about the thing with the mounts. Like you said, I think it's a little bit of a different vein because like we're still talking like pretty remotely low chances to drop of these things. But yeah, I've seen it crash and burn before, and I don't want to see it crash and burn in WoW because I love the game. So
yeah. I mean, I the prestige part of it bothers me less because like I don't know, like if after this event is over, I see like 5% more invincibles or Mimiron's heads hanging out in Dornegal, like I'm not gonna be like, oh, that mount sucks, loser. I understand there's always some prestige attached to mounts. Like I do definitely notice the people that have the Gallywix bot mount that you get from Mythic Gallywix. Like I ran a key with someone yesterday who had that mount, and I was like, ooh, fancy. So like I get that there's some of that. I don't think this entirely destroys that. And I mean, there's an argument to be made, right? We could make the same argument that the new Keystone Legend mount is not as cool anymore because with Turbo Boost, everyone's getting 3K, right? You could say that. I don't think so, but you could say that anytime they do anything that's limited, that's going to increase either odds of something or player power, or then you're going to in some way lower the prestige of something. Like I'm sure there's someone out there that says like, this is the easiest season to get CE, so CE doesn't even matter anymore. Everyone gets CE, which is, of course, false, and also stupid. But like it's just like you could make that argument. So yeah, I mean, I get it. I get like mounts are like the last remaining like bastion of prestige in this game because like they're very obvious to see, they're very big, and they're noticeable. I think based on what I've seen, I don't think this absolutely destroys this. So
sure.
But yeah, I mean, I think you have an argument of is this a thing that should come back in a regular cadence or not? And what the correct cadence is, right? Maybe it's not once a year. Maybe it's like, oh, every few years we're going to do this again is ultimately better.
And I'm going to be completely real with everybody listening. Like, it's hard for me to actually make an argument on this because Scott and I kind of both don't care about this. Yeah. So it doesn't impact us, but it is something happening. And I want to be mindful that it is something happening and kind of give validity to those arguments.
Yeah.
But I don't know ultimately. Like, I don't have enough information to really know how to feel about this because it's not something that is impacting me in that way.
Yeah. So I did almost think about flying to Ice Crown and just seeing if the Lich King will give me his mount. But then I thought about having to run through the entirety of that raid, and I said, I'm not going to do that.
All right, Scott. Well, we don't have a ton more time, so we better get to this last part here. I don't think this is going to take us a ton of time.
No, I'll be quick.
We need to talk about our season 3 goals because we had season 2 goals that were a little lofty and might have missed the mark a little bit on that one. But
yeah, do we want to recap what our season 2 goals are before we state our season 3 goals?
Yeah, we can do that. I'll let you start off with your heal team 6 and how that's going.
Well, the heal team suffered some setbacks. One of the members was shot and he's dead. The evoker just died, so we lost him. We lost a lot of good men out there. No, I mean, ultimately, like, first of all, when I set it at 3K, let me preface this with like, I still think getting 3K score is a challenge and it's a good undertaking. I did not think it was going to be as easy as it was this season, which I think it is. It is just factually true that it is easier to get 3K this season than it probably ever has been in the game. That does not take away from anyone that's gotten there. Good job, everyone. You should definitely feel proud of yourself. But like, I set this goal, then quit. So I had kind of abandoned the goal, then came back to the game and then said, oh, this is easier than I thought. So I'm going to do it again. And then I just kind of ran out of time and steam because it's a lot of gearing. It's a lot of gearing. So where I sit right now is I have 3 healers at 3K and then I have a disc priest at like 28 or something. And that's probably where I'm going to chill at for the rest of the season. I am playing my Resto Shaman right now, who is done like 2 keys and is like 630. I'll probably continue to fiddle with him because I just want to kind of learn Resto Shaman a little bit better. But I think like I have no specific goal in mind. I think I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish ultimately in season 2. I feel good about it. The only regret I have is that this was a season that pushing beyond the 3K limit was also, if 3K is the easiest it's ever been, it's therefore by the transitive property also easier to push higher than 3K than it has ever been. And I have some regrets that I didn't do that because basically what I did is the second I got 3K on a character, I said, cool, check, done. And I moved on to the next one. And so my highest score right now was like 30-50 and that's it. And I definitely feel like I have the ability and the capability to have gotten much higher than that. But I was so focused on this specific goal, I missed that. What was your season 2 goal? I don't even remember.
Well, I was going to do a character with you every step of the way of this Heal Team 6 journey.
That didn't happen.
But that didn't end up happening. And mainly because I flip-flopped between roles so much. Because I had my prop paladin that I played all the way up to like 28 or 2900.
Mm-hmm.
And then I swapped over. I played my hunter and got 3K on my hunter. Got like 2900 on a Death Knight. And then started tanking a little bit again on my bear, got 2,900 on him. So like I just flip-flopped around to fill what our group needed too much for that. But the initial goal was to get a character to 3K with you along the way. I still played with you along the way of all of your characters, which is why I have so many tunes that are just split right about to hit 3K, but not quite there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at. But I don't know. I didn't really have any hard goals going into this.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is, and the thing that I'm the most proudest of myself for, is I played a couple of new specs going into this season. Unholy DK. I have played Frost and I have played Blood in the past, and I have played them both at competitive levels and like mythic rating and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I had never played Unholy, and I played Unholy to 2,900 or whatever this season. And I did, full heroic clear on the Unholy DK. So it was nice to be able to do that and play a spec that I've never really played before.
Sure.
And in the same vein, maybe I'll try and do that next season as well. But that's not currently my goals for next season.
Yeah. All right. So let's shift to season 3. What do you think you want to accomplish in this one?
So I'm going to try to break my mentality of how I have been in the past.
Okay.
And in that, I normally start out the season with extremely meta picks because I have a hard time knowing I am playing something that is not the best for what I am doing. And so this season, I'm just going into it. I'm going to play my hunter, and I'm just going to try to be the absolute best hunter that I can be, whether that is playing survival or marksman or BM, whatever ends up being the best, I'll do that. But if hunter ends up not being meta, then hunter ends up not being meta, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I really just want to take this season and fully focus on my hunter. Obviously, I'll have alts, but I'm not going to have like the same mindset of like, okay, I need to get 3K on like 4 or 5 different characters. If it happens, it happens. Yeah. But my main focus, like for one season in my entirety of playing this game, I'm going to truly have a main instead of having a main to a point and then swapping mains.
I don't believe you. Just kidding. No, I think that's a great goal. I will do whatever I can to help you accomplish that. And yeah, I mean, like, I think again, sometimes the meta is the meta for a reason. It's because they're just clearly better. And sometimes it's just better by such a small percentage. Like it is true and remains to be true that everything that we do in this game can be done by any spec, any class.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it might be harder or easier depending. I mean, healers are incredibly balanced right now in the season, but like I would be lying if I did not say that doing keys as a disc priest is so much easier on to heal than any other spec. It just, you feel so much more in control of and you feel the ability to save people when they make mistakes is like there's so much more there. So that doesn't mean that you can't do it on other classes, but it just means some are easier or harder. And yeah, I mean, I think we're good enough at the game to accomplish what we want to accomplish on just about any class. Yeah, and so for me, with that in mind, I think season 2 was all about breadth of classes, and this time I really want to focus on depth. So I enjoyed playing all the healers. I really did, with the exception of the dragon one, but we don't talk about him. He's dead. I enjoyed playing all the healers. I enjoyed learning all the healers, and it is very fun to get to the same key level, like 13s, and like realize that, oh, I have to approach this differently on each and every one of the healers. Like I struggled on my paladin on Priory of the Sacred Flame at a 13 mightily, a key that like on my resto druid, like I was fine on from a healing perspective, but I struggled, and it was just because I was playing not up to par with what the tools of the spec have, and I had to stop myself and like, okay, I gotta approach this differently. I gotta figure this out. I gotta use everything in my tool belt. And like that is the reason why I wanted to play all the healers in the first place, because I think not only is it fun to experience all the different play styles, but it makes you better because you have to problem solve differently with every single one of them. So I don't want to lose that completely, but I do want to push in this season. Like I don't want to stop at 3K and then go to with someone else. So I'm playing my resto druid again. I'm coming home to my best friend, Tree. Me and Tree, we love each other. And I want to push on my resto druid. I want to see how high I can go. I'm not going to set any kind of goal like title. I don't even know if I'm going to specifically say I want to beat my highest Mythic Plus score ever. I think my goal is a lot more loose, that I want to focus on gearing my druid and then seeing how high I can get him. And that's what I want my goal to be. So I would love if we had a set 5-man again. I don't know if that's ever going to be in the cards for us, but I think there's still room in what we normally do to pug beyond where I was at this season, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, getting a 5-man would then allow us to set the goal of hitting higher than we ever have before. But
yes,
until that happens, that's pretty lofty. Even though, like, going into this next season, if it is the same difficulty-ish as season 2, it's reasonable.
Sure.
But it takes a lot to pug. It's a lot of time sitting in queue, and it's a lot of time finding people. If something doesn't go well, then somebody leaves. They don't have like an obligation to stay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just a lot of downtime when it comes to pugging, which makes pushing those very high keys a little bit more daunting.
That is definitely true. And we'll see how it goes. I think this is a weird season for the both of us, because we don't necessarily know what our raid situation is going to be. I think this raid looks sick. I really, really, really want to do it. I don't know if I have a group to do it with, so that we're going to be playing that by ear and see how that goes. But the core of the game, the part of the game I love the most has always been Mythic Plus for me. So I hope to get AOTC and then see where we go from there from a raid perspective, whether it's AOTC pugging or finding a group that's running it that has room for me. I don't know. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. The raid is really the only question mark for me going into this season. I know that we'll do perfectly fine when it comes to keys. And the fact that we actually have shit to do week 1 is going to make it even more so that way, because we're not going to get that like, oh, the new season's here, we're super excited, like let's go, new patch, and then nothing to do for a week. So
Yeah,
the fact that we have something to do, I think is going to just kind of carry that excitement into the beginning of the season and just catapult us into Mythic Plus.
for sure. Yep. But I got to do the raid because there's a really fucking good trinket in there. I need it so bad.
Scott and this trinket, we're gonna see if it's even in the same iteration by the time
No,
the
it's
testing's
they're
done.
gonna nerf it. They're 100% gonna nerf it. But I can dream, folks. If you don't know, there's a trinket in the raid right now that gives you and your 4 closest allies a 75% DR shield that only breaks when it absorbs like 5.5 million health, which is it's no longer like half of anyone's health bar because stamina will push people to like 12, 14 million or something. It's still a huge chunk of their health, and it's on a 90-second cooldown. Every 90 seconds, I get to put a 75% DR on the whole party. It's ridiculous. It's like, holy shit. I need it. I need it right now.
What happens if it only has like a 5-yard range?
Well, everyone better fucking get to me. Get in my F-flow so I can press my trinket.
No, I think it's cool. It's cool that they're giving everybody a kind of like external, because there are some classes that are really struggling with that right now.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
This trinket does highlight how shitty Cheat Cocoon is, by the way.
Yeah.
It's basically Cheat Cocoon for everyone in your party on a 90-second cooldown.
Yeah, I was gonna say monks are kind of struggling with like externals for tanks.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other ones that are pretty rough. Shamans, I think, are pretty rough when it comes for externals specifically for tanks.
Yeah.
But like then you have things like pain sub on a priest, and you throw that on your tank, and you just like don't pay attention to them for 10 seconds at all, even in a massive pull. So it's a little bit crazy and wild, but hey, it's the world we live in. But all right, Scott, I don't know that we have anything else for this week.
No.
And I'm hopeful that we'll get some more interesting potential changes coming over this next week. We will be keeping an eye on how the testing and everything's going, and keeping a pulse on what they're doing with class changes, because I don't think they're done. They definitely have a lot of room to go when it comes for class changes. And, you know, we might think something is bad now. For example, with the Breath of Cindergosa change, where I felt like that was going to be a little bit odd. They changed it literally 2 days after us releasing that episode. So we'll keep a pulse on that. We'll see how things are going. But my question for you guys is, you know, how are you guys feeling about season 3, and what are your goals, if you have any, for season 3, whether it's raid or Mythic Plus or mount farming related, or if it's delve related, maybe don't comment it because you might get put on blast by Scott. But hey, whatever you guys have for goals, please, as always, you can contact us at yellingintothevoidwow@gmail.com. YouTube is at yellingintothevoidwow, and Twitter is at intothevoidwow.
Imagine making delve goals. That's hilarious. If you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so you never miss a single episode and you learn that delves are bad. You can find us at iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found. I just want to say I've cooled on delves a little bit. I'm not so angry about their existence. I think they're all right, except for the bad ones, which is most of them.
Well, yeah, because now to get your player power, all you can do is spam level 1 delves, and then you ignore them. So it's not like you're actually doing the content, right?
Dude, I've done so many overcharge delves to get the belt on all 5 of my characters that I've almost got enough of those stupid Titan discs to get them out. I'm almost there.
That's a little bit wild.
Yes.
So you guys heard it here. Scott has turned into a mole person.
Oh man.
And any of the previous video where he shits on delves, just make sure like you point that out directly to him.
It's such a fun gameplay loop of doing the same delve over and over again.
But also, guys, please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting on the YouTube video. All of these things help us get more exposure and allow us to be introduced to new people and continue what we are doing here. So With that being said, though, guys, until next week, we'll just be over here yelling into the void.